And welcome back. This is your man Warrior. This is another patron roster review. This is Crixus from Sounds in Space. What's going on, everybody? It Sounds in Space. Now, Crixus is wanting me to look at ships just a little bit, some things that he might need to focus on specifically for the 5C node. Very difficult, trying to get through it, trying to figure out how to get through it, which ones should he be focused on. I'm going to give him 5 ships that he should focus on for the next evolution, and then wants to know about maybe some next factions to work on for Grand Arena, and then generalized overview modding for Grand Arena. So we're going to give kind of like another video I gave. I'm going to give overall generalized modding guidelines in hopes that it kind of helps your mental process when going through mods. Now we're going to look at ships first, and looking at ships, you're doing well. You're starting to develop the important ships. I see TIE Silencer and Houndstooth, as well as the Phantom 2s up there that you've got the reinforcement on. Cassian's, you've got his reinforcement maxed out. So you're kind of looking at lots of different ships, but when I kind of flip through here, there's a couple small ships that kind of pop out that I want you to look at that are side projects, and that's Anakin's ETA Starfighter, the ETA-2, and Houndstooth. You're already developing Houndstooth, but I hope you're developing the ETA Starfighter 2. Think of this ship as good as the TIE Advanced. And if we look back at your TIE Advanced, we can see that it's basically one of the best ships that you have. Obviously, you need to get it 7 stars, which means you got to continue to buy those stars for that ship. But you can see it's a high priority both in the crew member and in the ship for you. And I want you to think of ETA-2 as the same. Anakin's ship is similar but different, but has a lot of really great functionality that's very similar when coming out of reinforcement. And you're going to obviously want to get his reinforcements maxed out. But aside from him and Houndstooth, the other 3 ships I'm going to highly recommend, and I know you know it was coming. I know everybody watching knew it was coming. It's the Geonosians. They are still today the most synergistic ship team in the game. They're going to just tear through Node 5C when they're maxed out. And while nobody enjoys gearing up, the Spy and Sunfac, the Soldier is easy to gear. He's one of the easiest gears in the game, so definitely can go ahead and gear him up. And Sunfac is actually a character you're going to use on offensive teams like a Rex, Wampa, Sunfac team to go against other teams. He's got a dispel on basic, so he's got some super functionality as a character in the game in those other areas such as Grand Arena. But you've got to get these ships maxed out. These are the easiest ships to really get, and then the characters you can get really easily as well. The only part that stinks, of course, is maxing out the ship's abilities, and then of course eventually maxing out these characters to gear 11 minimum, so that way you can max out the abilities of the cruise ship's power. So that's what I would recommend, the Geos, and then of course your ETA-2 and Houndstooth. I know ETA-2 is not farmable, but still develop the crew member, still develop the ship, and then when it becomes farmable, you'll be all ready to go. Plus, when he's in your backup lineup, he's less likely to die right away because he's not being targeted right off the bat. Now, I want to go into generalized modding for Grand Arena, Arena, or Territory Wars, so that way you can kind of have a general rule of thumb. But there's 2 kinds of attackers: physical damage attackers and special damage attackers. If you click on a character to know which is which, just click on an ability. It will tell you deals physical damage. Or if you go to an ability, a character that does special damage, it will say deals special damage. So you want to know first whether it does physical or special. If it does physical damage as an attacker, you want the sets to be critical damage and critical chance. Now, these are generalized rules of thumb. They don't apply every single time to everyone, but 9 out of 10 times this is right. You'll want to use critical chance and critical damage sets, and you'll want the arrow to actually be critical damage. This arrow or this triangle should be critical damage, and then your sets, crit chance and crit damage. Now, on a character such as this, he does physical damage there, and then he deals physical damage here. So with that said, you would want crit chance, crit damage mod sets with a speed arrow. You would want this to be critical damage, and then you'd want this to be offense as a primary stats. Those are preferred for any attackers. Now, sometimes you're going to need some tenacity, or you're going to need some additional protection or something, so that bottom right plus can be whatever you want it to be. But if you really want to maximize the damage output, you're going to want to do a plus. The other thing is, is if they do special damage, such as Grandmaster Yoda, he does special damage. You'd want to do an offense set and a critical chance set if you have them available over the crit chance and crit damage. You'd want to do offense set and crit chance set. And then for the triangle on that, you can do a lot of different things. You can either do offense, you could do a crit chance if you need to get your crit chance up, or you could do critical damage if your crit chance was over 40% already. But this is kind of what you want to do with your attackers. The attackers deal damage. Damage dealers need offense and critical damage. So you want to modify those stats. Now, support is the hardest because there is a wide array of support characters. Some are damage dealers, some do special damage, some do physical damage, some are designed to do damage, some are not designed to do much damage. Like Biggs Darklighter, he's a damage dealer. He really should be modded like a damage dealer. Same thing with Emperor Palpatine, should be modded with, speed and offense because he does special damage. A lot of these characters on support do special damage, and with special damage comes offense as a primary stat, but you really want to look at support characters. Most of them are going to require a lot of speed. For example, Asajj Ventress, speed is a good thing. Darth Nihilus, R2-D2, Grandmaster Yoda, BB-8, Grand Admiral Thrawn. These are all speed-related characters because a support character, what it does is most of the time supports the other characters by doing something over and over and over, such as a special ability. Not always. Again, there's a lot of hidden attackers inside of support, such as Grandmaster Yoda or Mother Talzin. You could put offense on her and she's going to do a ton of damage. Same thing with Palpatine. But as a general rule of thumb, if you want to make these guys durable, put primary stats of protection on these guys for a lot of them, as well as a speed set with speed secondaries. You're not going to hurt anybody by making it a fast Darth Nihilus or a fast R2-D2 or a fast Thrawn or a fast Admiral Akbar. But keep in mind, if the purpose of the character is damage, such as Biggs Darklighter, treat them as an attacker. If the purpose of a character is more like a tank, kind of like R2-D2 is, you may want to do speed with a bunch of defense or a bunch of protection to keep him around longer. Same thing with Darth Nihilus. Protection is awesome for arena, but overall, speed up your supports. And while most tanks in the game are tanks, not all of them are. Some characters such as Jedi Training Rey is actually an attacker. You'd want to treat her as such. But for the majority of these characters, Darth Sion, Kylo Ren Unmasked, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Poplu, these are all tanks. Some of the tanks are going to need to be fast, such as Poplu or Kylo Ren Unmasked. But for the most part, most of these tanks do not need speed. In fact, what they need is they need defensive stat boosts. And the defensive stats you're looking at boosting with mod sets would be defense, tenacity, and health. Any amounts of additional health are going to help. Any amounts of additional defense are going to go farther on a tank than any other characters in the game. And tenacity is going to help with preventing debuffing. Now, with that said, make sure you have tenacity modded for over 100%. If you don't get over 100%, you're literally just throwing it away as a mod set and you should have just done something else. So get it to 110, 125, 150% tenacity, and you'll see your characters starting to not get debuffed nearly as much as they were prior. But as far as primary stats, we talked about mod stats or mod sets, but primary stats, you want to add a ton of protection or health or both, as well as additional secondary tenacity. Some of these characters, you want to even add additional offense, such as Sion and Kylo Ren Unmasked, but a lot of defensive type stats, such as protection, health, and tenacity, are great for your primary mod sets and for secondary stats as well. And then remember, the sets of defense, tenacity, or health work really, really well. But on occasion, someone like Poplu, you might have to put a speed set on to try and get him over 200 so you can use him more effectively. But as a general rule of thumb, that hopefully helps with the modding prerequisites for a lot of the characters you have, so you can ask yourself, what's the purpose of this character? Should he be slower and tankier? Should he be faster? Should he do damage? What kind of damage does he do or does she do? And then figure out from there what mods would be most appropriate. Now we're going to walk through a couple of your factions for Grand Arena. And by the way, I just put out a 3 versus 3 video not too long ago on best 3v3 teams for Grand Arena, so check that out. But we're going to kind of walk through the factions. We're going to talk about characters within each faction that you kind of need to focus on. By the way, you're a Dolphin, been playing a little less than 2 years, so your development is about average. Looks pretty good for a Dolphin at 2 years, because you're almost at that 3 million galactic power mark. Now let's go ahead and go through all the factions for Galactic Arena. So when looking at your bounty hunters, the first thing I noticed, because you are a Dolphin, we're not going to max every single character out and every single thing out, but the first 2 characters that come to light for me is your Jango Fett and Bosk. And the reason those 2 do is, first, Bosk has your Houndstooth. You need to continue developing him, and he's one of the best leaders for a defensive bounty hunter team. But you also Zeta'd Jango Fett and have him gear 8 4-star. Don't stop now. If you're going to spend the Zeta on him and you're going to develop him halfway, you should finish it. Plus, he is amazing both as a lead and underneath Bosk, both. Easy to get Bosk's payout with a Jango Fett and a Boba Fett and a Dengar. These types of characters are going to do AoE debuffing and get to your payout really, really fast. So for now, the 2 you should really be focused on is Bosk and Jango Fett, gearing them up and eventually finishing off their stars, especially when Jango becomes farmable. Now, your Ewoks look pretty good. In fact, they look great with, the 7 stars, and there's a lot of great characters, and your best are the top 5 best characters. If you were looking at a possible faction to Zeta and have as an offensive team, the thing you need to do is basically Zeta Chief Chirpa, and then get Poplu above 200 speed, preferably closer to 220 speed. He boosts his own speed already, but you definitely want to try and get over that 200 speed so you can kind of immediately start to do your turn meter manipulation with the team. Ewok Elder is going to keep him alive. Wicket's your damage dealer, so crit chance, crit damage, and really only 1 Zeta for the whole team to pop. And like I said, you've got him pretty well developed right now. So for me personally, I would just focus on modding Poplu correct and then putting a Zeta on Chief Chirpa, and that's going to give you a lot more viability with this team than it is now. For First Order, I would probably focus on First Order Stormtrooper and also First Order Executioner, finishing off their star level and finishing gearing First Order Stormtrooper. A First Order faction in and of itself is just really, really great. Make sure that you get Kylo Ren Unmasked and First Order Officer really, really fast. And then, of course, First Order Officer, if you choose to use him, needs to be geared up more, because where he's at gear-wise isn't very sufficient. But get Kylo Ren Unmasked fast. And then when you get First Order Officer a little bit more leveled up, you can get him fast as well on the team. And Stormtrooper makes for a really great tank, for another tank on this team to really make it very, very durable. You've already got Zetas on the team with your other Kylo Rens, so it's looking great. And even your First Order Executioner is gear 10. Remember, he's your primary damage dealer, so crit chance and crit damage on him. And then Kylo Ren Unmasked and Kylo Ren, you can go a bunch of different directions, but for Kylo Ren Unmasked, I really suggest you make him fast. People really judge your First Order team based on how they believe they can beat it, and if you have a slow Kylo Ren, they will use their Ewoks to pick you apart. So definitely speed your Kylo Ren up, and First Order Officer helps with that as well. The other Kylo Ren can be slower, and he gets turn meter, on his basic, he gives turn meter away and stuff, or on his special, his AoE special, he can give turn meter to the whole team. And he's just a pain in the butt, and you've got him looking great. So don't worry about him. Just First Order Executioner and Stormtrooper, get him startup, get Stormtrooper and First Order Officer geared up, and then this team will be popping. If you wanted an entire faction to chew on, and by the way, I'm going to put them as your last priority in the list of everything I'm talking about today. So put these guys on the farthest back burner over everything else I've talked about. Jango and Bosk, more important. I really feel like even Ewoks are more important, especially for C-3PO. And I really feel like First Order is closer to be done, so you want to do them. And then the other teams we're going to talk about are closer to be done. So this would be the last team of all of them. But Range Trooper is really a must, and you want to have Snow Trooper, Stark, Veers, Death Trooper, Shore Trooper. These are all really, 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 really great characters. The only Zeta in the entire group you need is General Veers' Zeta. That's it, and then you're good. But the rest need to be starred up and geared up. And again, this would be the last last in the list of characters that I would work on. Now, your Jedi are looking pretty good. And when I look at your team, I'm thinking, you know, which leader should you use? And you could use Grandmaster Yoda as a lead, but I would really suggest you continuing to focus on Bastila Shan and Jolie Bindo. Bastila Shan and Jolie Bindo are going to be excellent in the long run over the next 6 months. And Bastila Shan, you can Zeta her leadership, even at 5 stars. She's got one of the highest protection pools in the entire game. She's super durable, and her leadership is going to make the rest of your Jedi team amazing. Barasafi and General Kenobi, you know, so you've got lots of different characters that you can put under her, and you can use it for offense or defense, but I would recommend it probably being on defense. And you want to gear Bastila Shan up, and then you want to Zeta her lead, because you don't have Revan, and she's awesome lead. She's a really, really great lead for sure. Looking at your team here, for the most part, it all looks really good. Night Sister Spirit looks awesome, 7 stars, gear 8, and hard to hit, so she's already doing well. Crit chance and damage on Night Sister Spirit, but Mother Talzin, for the most part, is one of the core tunes you need to really finish off to gear 11, like you did Daka and Asajj Ventress. So get Mother Talzin from 10 to 11 and Zeta her leadership ability. I think you're going to enjoy Mother Talzin leadership. You'll be able to take this team in offensively and win against other Bastila Shan teams, or against other Rebel teams, or against lots and lots of different teams that are out there. They work great on offense, or you can put them on defense with your, you know, Nest or Wampa to try to prevent somebody from taking your Night Sisters out with the Imperial Troopers. But Night Sisters, well, Mother Talzin, finish her off to gear 11 at least, and then put her Zeta, her leadership Zeta on her. And of course, you had a lot of Rebels that look good. You can do multiple Rebel teams. And so I'm not trying to go over everybody, just trying to go over teams that you need a little tweaking here and a little tweaking there. And for Resistance, Rey's leadership Zeta is super important. I really recommend this Zeta as well as finishing her to gear 11. You will want to finish BB-8 to gear 11 as well. And then, of course, C-3PO, get him geared up. Even at 6 stars, get him geared up. He's going to be an amazing addition to both your Rebels and your Resistance. And that's what I would do here is Zeta Rey first over all of them. Get Rey and BB-8 and C-3PO geared up, so that way you'll have more team capability with the Resistance, both on offense and defense. But I like to keep Resistance for offense. All right, Crixus, you're doing really well. Your ships look good. You know, dig down into those geos, get them maxed out. I know you don't want to, but for 5C, the node 5C, you definitely should. Keep focused on your Houndstooth in the ETA2, so that way when it becomes farmable, you'll be able to break it out. And modding, the modding suggestions I made, remember they're general rules of thumb. They don't apply to every single character, but hopefully they get your mind right. And remember, Jango and Bosk, you need to gear up. Put a Zeta on Chirpa. Get your Poplu fast. Gear up First Order Stormtrooper and for your First Order officer, and get your Kylo Ren unmasked fast. Eventually, you want to level up and gear up your Bastila Shan and Zeta her. That's going to help. Gear up and Zeta your Mother Talzin. Zeta your Jedi Training Rey, plus gear her up, and gear BB-8 up and C-3PO up. And then lastly, your Imperial Troopers, Zeta Veers, and work on that entire faction. Hopefully, that'll give you a competitive edge. I've given you enough for at least 6 months to really look at and focus on. I hope this helps you stay competitive in all factions, but most of all, Grand Arena. Remember, I put out that video on 3 versus 3. This was more focused on 5 versus 5, but 3 versus 3, there's a video out. Check it out. And if you have any questions, you can always hit me up. But if people have comments, leave them down below. What should Crixus do? And as always, keep your gaming on. Warrior out.